So welcome to the Rise Up to Scale Up webinar. This program is kind of like goal setting, but it's really different. It's really about a system, and it's focused on closing that gap between where we are today and where we could be. And I'm going to talk about how I got introduced to this in a minute, but let me just say, since May, since I've been working through this system, my business in 2019, we had a 50% increase, which is great news. I highly attribute that to the system. Personally, I went from 19.2% body fat down to 12.1% body fat. So I leaned out. I've got a lot more energy. I feel a lot better. And my, I think I'm a better husband, a better dad, a better son, a better relative, a better friend. And so this is really a total person system. And it means the world to me that you're here, and I'm excited to work with you. It builds on a couple of previous webinars, and that's why I provided a link in the chat window. One was A-player hiring, so I'll make a reference or two to that, and one was manager and coach. So you may want to go and listen to those if you haven't heard those already. Additionally, you're going to want to listen to this over and over again. I'm going to get this done in an hour. There's a lot of opportunity for thinking time. So we'll be sending a replay out, and you'll get a chance to go back through it time and time again. So let me jump in. Again, I'm Mark Fenner. I'm president of Rise Performance Group, and this is just a shot of me with a couple current thought leaders that I work the most closely with. One is Vern Harnish. He's the author of Scaling Up. As most of you know, I'm a scaling up coach. I just love this platform. In fact, be on the lookout. You're going to see a rebrand as we rebrand to, as I start a new brand actually, Scaling Up DFW. And then of course, John Maxwell has just been life-changing for me in the area of leadership. And then some of my early mentors were Zig Ziglar. I would say Zig Ziglar changed my life in college, gosh, long time ago. And then Tony Robbins has been somebody that I've really learned a lot and has really shaped who I am today. But the guy on the screen right here is Eric Partaker, and he's the thought leader behind this program. And so to honor him, you'll notice some of the worksheets are branded in his brand. It's got his contact information at the bottom. And I encourage you to go to his website. He was Entrepreneur of the Year in the United Kingdom. He's a phenomenal entrepreneur, phenomenal trainer, phenomenal leader. He's got a blog you can sign up for. But a big part of what we're going to cover today came from me going through this same program with Eric last summer. So let me jump in with my purpose, and that is to help people and organizations rise up so they can scale up. And what I've really been learning through my business is, significance just has such a bigger impact than success. Success is about what I do. Significance is about what other people can do as a result of whatever effort I might make or whatever impact I might make in their life, no matter how big or how small. And there's nothing that juices me more than somebody accomplishing something out of something they learned through one of my webinars or through one of my coaching sessions. And so I just want to thank you for being a part of my journey and participating today. Now, the Rise Up to Scale Up rhythm looks like this. Number one, it starts with vision. It starts with a vision. So think 10, 15, 20 years out. The good book says, without a vision, the people perish. But vision without a plan doesn't work. It's insanity, right? It's just not gonna go anywhere. In fact, I think it was Thomas Edison who said, vision without execution is hallucination. So we want to take that vision and we want to build a plan of how to take that future vision and turn it into today's reality. But the plan is not any good if we don't act against it and act intentionally. So the action is critical because through the action, we produce outcomes, and those outcomes give us experience. And they lead to the fourth area, which is reflection, because If we don't take time to reflect, then we miss the key lessons that are learned through the act of taking action on the plan. So the reflection gives us a chance to turn that experience into insight. And sometimes we need to pivot. Sometimes our plan wasn't good. We need to pivot on the plan. And sometimes we need to persevere. We just need to hunker down. We had the right plan. But we're the problem. We're not hunkering on that. And that reflection period gives us a chance to evaluate that. I encourage my clients, and I encourage you to write your vision in concrete. Make that thing solid. Commit to it. Make it a must. But be flexible with your plans. Maybe think about writing those in sand. If the plan's not working, change the plan, but commit to getting to the vision. And that's what this program, my hope is that this program is going to give you a format and a rhythm and a system to do just that. Now, I designed this for both managers and for individual contributors, or for managers that want to grow. I mean, we can't give what we don't have. But there's a one-on-one format that I'm teaching that I talked about in the workshop, Manager as Coach. So I'm not going to go through this form today, but I want to encourage you, if you're a leader and you want to develop the people on your team, go to the webinar, Manager as Coach. The link is here on the screen. It's also in the chat box, and you can find it on my YouTube page, and rewatch it as well, because it'll really help you pull this together. Okay. So I want to talk now about how to help you rise up. And there's some fundamental principles here that I want to cover. Number one is we have optimal engagement in a goal or in our work when three things are present. Number one is our work has meaning. We have a sense of purpose in the work that we do. And this was reinforced in me probably 5 or 6 years ago. I was at church, and there was a guy next to me that worked at Apple in the late 70s, early 80s. And we got to talking, and I asked the question. I said, so, you know, I've heard that everybody was just fanatically engaged at Apple back in those days. And he goes, Mark, he goes, undoubtedly. That was, if I could have a chance to go back to that point in my career, I would do it in a heartbeat. And I said, what was it about that environment that had you all so engaged, so committed, so excited that you just lost track of time? And he said, Mark, even though I was working in a production facility, making computers, we never, myself and my peers, we never looked at ourselves as just making computers. We thought we were making a new tool that was going to change the world. So think about that for a minute. Do you see where the work you're doing today has an opportunity to make a bigger impact on the company, the people, your community, the organization? Or maybe you can think as boldly as this gentleman at work did, that it could actually change the world. So as leaders, I'm going to circle back to leaders, we need to bring that meaning to the work. We need to tie it to helping the company achieve its goals. We need to have our people need to have clear line of sight with that if we're going to have them engaged. And ideally, it's a part of a bigger purpose. It's bigger than just making money, that looks at the purpose the company has on the community and on society and maybe on the world as a whole. Number two is our work has meaning. Number two, we're growing. And everything in nature is either growing or that's right, you said it, it's dying. There's nothing that stays still in nature, and we as people are the same. And if you think of people that you've met that are smart and capable in their jobs that left on their own will, I bet 90% of them said something like, you know, I just grew stale, I got bored, I got tired, it was just time for me to go. So it's important for us as individuals, and it's important for organizations to create opportunities where people can grow. That's part of why I just love the idea of helping companies scale so much. And then number three, and I think this is the icing on the cake, but we're a part of a team that's winning. You know, we all love to be a part of winning organizations. I'm from Kansas City. go Chiefs, let's hope we win a Super Bowl. But 4 years ago, the Kansas City Royals won the World Series. And it wasn't that long ago that they were considering moving moving the Royals out of Kansas City because they couldn't get fans to come to the ballpark. Yet when the Royals won the World Series and they did their parade, it was estimated there were over 1 million people that came out to celebrate with the Royals. Couldn't get 10,000 people in the seats, but 1 million people were suddenly fans. That's the power of having a team that's winning. And so focusing on how we're winning and focusing on what's working is important for us personally as we're achieving bold goals, and it's important as we're leading teams. So let's think. I'm gonna talk now a little bit art and science here. I've created a form, and it looks like this. I've got it on the screen, and hopefully you've printed this out. And this is the one-page personal growth plan. Now, this ties into it components from the job scorecard. That's why I want you to listen to that first A-player hiring webinar that I did. I go in depth into that job scorecard, and then it incorporates a lot of the things that I've taken from goal setting and that Eric really helped me crystallize through the workshop and the series that I went through this summer. But it starts at the top with the mission and with the accountabilities. Now, think of mission of what you do and why you do it. And I remember a couple years ago, I was working with a company that was in the payroll processing business. And Shauna was one of the leaders that was in a meeting I was running, and she ran treasury. And she said, Mark, I just do treasury. It's not that exciting. There's not really a why or a sense of purpose behind what we do. We just have to do it. And she no more than said that. And Valerie, who ran operations, said, Shauna, she said, do you not realize that because of the accuracy with which your department executes that treasury function, which is about moving money back and forth between accounts so payroll checks can clear, that our clients would not trust us and we would not be growing the way that we're growing? And then Joel, who ran sales, was like, yeah, Shauna, do you realize on every meeting my sales team goes on, we talk about your department, the amount of money that you move on a daily basis, which was in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and the accuracy with which you do it. And I just remember the look on Shauna's face, and she thought, man, I guess I never looked at it that way. And so I encourage you to write down here, what do? You may run operations, you may run sales, you may be a CEO, you may run the company, you may do accounts payable, accounts receivable, you may be a buyer in your company, but what do? And why does it matter? Why is it important? And you may need to ask around and strengthen that why so you get the sense of purpose behind your work. That's what creates the meaning in what you're doing. If that's missing, there's nothing more important right now than getting that solidified. You're never going to bring the best version of yourself if you don't see a sense of purpose, meaning in the work that you're doing. So take a minute and just write down, what do? And write down on the form, why does it matter? What comes to your mind? Why does it matter? And I'm available after the webinar. If you want to send me your ideas, I'll help you brainstorm it. If you got a manager or a leader, I encourage you to work with them. But the second box is our 3 to 5 accountabilities. So what is it that you're responsible for? So in my work as a scaling up coach, I'm responsible for helping my clients grow revenues, profits, cash flow, right? Those measures of success. I'm responsible for giving them more time by driving down accountability, decision-making, and problem-solving so they can be more strategic. And I'm accountable for helping them develop more purpose and meaning in their work so they enjoy it more. So they enjoy the climb. It becomes easier. It becomes more fun. Those are my top 3 accountabilities. That's what I need to be focused on every day when I go to engage with my clients. That's what I'm focused on. For Shauna, hers was about accuracy. Obviously, if you're moving, hundreds of millions of dollars around, it's got to be accurate. Number 2, it had to be timely. And number three, she needed to be responsive with clients as they move bank accounts, as things happen in their business, as they acquire other businesses and bring them on. She had to be extremely responsive to the needs of her customers. So what are your top accountabilities? If you're not clear, go back and look at my previous webinar on A-player hiring. That'll help you identify those key accountabilities that you should have on this list. Okay, now I'm going to cover the rest of these. And by the way, here's where those go in the on the form. So I'm going to cover the rest of these as I work through the different worksheets. So, and here's a link back to that A-player strategy. So, you know, there, and I've got the link to this in the chat as well. Okay, so pursuing the best version of yourself, and you know, and I'm borrowing this from my good friend Eric Partaker. I'm hoping to have him here in May, so we may do some stuff live together. But you know, again, I encourage you to go to his website. I'm using his forms. You'll notice they're a lot more creative. They look a lot better than mine, but hopefully you'll forgive me for that. But he's causing me to raise the bar a little bit. But what we're looking at here is we're looking at how do we become the best version of ourselves in what I believe are the three most important areas of our life. Now, many of you on the phone have seen like the wheel of life, and it's got 5, 6, or 7 spokes on it. Or, you know, Tony Robbins used to teach about building the categories. I think at one time I had 10 different categories that I was working on. Stephen Covey was the same. But what Eric really helped me realize through my coaching is, you know, these are the 3 categories that really make the biggest impact. I mean, if I get these right, they'll probably bring everything else along with them. So if you think about the 80-20 rule, this is the 20% that's going to make 80% of the impact. And they're 3 simple categories. One is our work. You know, what do we do? This is our career, you know, and work is a part of what we all need to do to not just survive, but to thrive. And so a big part of my passion is helping people become more so they can achieve more, so that they can ultimately give more and contribute. I believe that a life worth living is a life based on giving, and you can't give what you don't have. So it challenges us to grow, to become more. So one is the work that we do. One is love. Think of this as family. Think of this as your relationships. Some people put their faith in here. I actually put my faith in energy. So I think of energy as physical, emotional, and spiritual energy. That's where I want to think about my health and fitness and who am I as an individual. And if I don't get energy right, then none of the rest matters. So let's take a look at these. Pull the worksheet out. And I'm going to work on the one in the middle. I'm going to work on work first. And the fundamental principle here is that if we can get our identity associated with that best version of ourselves, it'll pull ourselves up. Every day it'll challenge us to bring the best version of ourselves to our work. So my identity in this area is pretty simple. It's to be the world's greatest coach. Now, some of you may chuckle and say, Mark, well, you got a long way to go. And you know what? You're right. You're right. I do have a long way to go. It creates a gap between where I am and where I think I can be, but it inspires me to work towards closing that gap rather than diminishing and lowering my standards. It encourages me when I see somebody like Vern or John Maxwell in action to say, how can I be more like them? Or as I get to know Eric deeper and deeper and deeper, how can I be more like him? Or a lot of you that I meet that are on this call that are so doggone talented in what you do. And I'm like, how can I be more like them? What is it about them that makes them special? And how can I use what I learned from them to raise my bar? And this principle My son played baseball when he was growing up. And, Eric said, it's easier to assume an identity than it is to change yourself. And when I heard him say that, I said, you're right. When Kyle used to go out and he'd be up to hit, all I would say at the time when he was growing up, we had a baseball player here in Texas called Alex Rodriguez. He's retired now. And his nickname was A-Rod. And all I'd say is, Kyle, go be A-Rod. Just go be A-Rod. And he would just assume that identity when he got into the batter's box. And instead of saying, hey, watch your feet, make sure you're holding the bat right, keep your eye on the ball, and all these things that create uncertainty, I just challenged him to assume that identity. And I bet you've done the same with your kids. Tony Robbins taught me a long time ago, there's no force in human psychology greater than our need to remain consistent with our identity, how we view ourselves. And so I've come up with this identity that I have around my work that's around world's greatest coach. So if you're a CEO, it's as simple as saying, I'm going to be the world's greatest CEO. Or if you run operations, I'm going to be the world's greatest chief operations officer. Or I'm going to be the world's greatest inventory manager. I'm going to be the world's greatest accounts payable clerk. Or I'm going to be the world's greatest treasury manager. It doesn't matter. World's greatest is simple. Now that may work for you. It may not. You can use whatever words connect with you, but I encourage you to use some words that inspire you to raise your game. Another alternative is to think of somebody that you would like to be more like. And, so oftentimes I'll say, if I was John Maxwell, how would I treat this situation? If I was Vern Harnish, how would I treat this situation? If I was Zig Ziglar, how would I treat this situation? Or how would I enter into this day? Or how would I tackle this challenge? And assuming that identity causes me to rise up, causes me to get better. So what I encourage you to do is to do what I did. When I first went through this exercise, I wrote world's greatest change agent. That's what I used at the time. And then I pulled some virtues. There's a website called Virtues for Life. And I pulled some of those virtues, and you'll see I wrote them down here on the left. So at the time I had wisdom, self-mastery, courage, and faith. And you'll see I've got a list of my 8, what I call my power virtues over here on the screen. But, there's tons of them. But these are the virtues that I'm really working to make real in my life, to help me in the day-to-day struggles and challenges of growth that I can tap into, that I can nurture, refine, and develop. So think about what that identity looks like. And then think about what would be your goal in that area for this year, for 2020. And I was so inspired. I was talking to a client of mine yesterday, and she was telling me about her son, Gabriel. And she said he's just doing so well in his job. He works at the University of Arkansas in the maintenance program there. And there's about 500 people in that maintenance department. Mark, in December, he was chosen as Employee of the Month. And she said he shared with me over the holidays that he had been working on that goal for 9 years. Think about that. He'd been focused on how can I win that goal. And she said he's so excited because now he wants to go for Employee of the Year. So that's his next goal, is how can I be Employee of the Year? So think if your team had those kind of goals that they were shooting for, and think of the goals you could set in your career that could help transform you. Now, you may have some other types of goals. I happened to put a revenue goal in this when I did it last year. This year, I have another revenue goal. I also have a client satisfaction. I call it a raving fan goal. And then I also have some growth goals in terms of where I want to grow, where I want to strengthen what it is I do. So I've talked a lot about work. Oh, 2 other things. And then what is the number one thing you need to start doing, and what's the number one thing you need to stop doing? And so when I went through this with Eric, I put in here I need to start reading and journaling daily. I need to start writing more. I need to get my thoughts down on paper. And that's just a great habit for me. And I need to start planning more meticulously. And as a result, I kind of redoubled down on my full focus planner from Michael Hyatt. Many of you have heard me talk about this. And what I need to stop doing is I need to stop reacting to situations, and I need to stop winging it. You know, I need to be more methodical, more intentional in the things I do. And you know, I think I'm decent in this area, but I think I've got a big area to grow to close that gap between where I am now and where I think I could be. So take a minute and write down, who are you at your work best? What is that identity? Write it down in that column. And think of what virtues could you tap into and really maximize to help you close that gap in terms of being the best version of who you could be in your job, whatever your job is today. And then what could be a one-year goal? What could be a one-year goal? Trust what comes to your heart right now. Just write it down. You can always go back and adjust this thing, but don't overthink it. Biggest challenge I have is people overthink this stuff. Just write it down. And then what's the number one thing? What do you need to start doing? And what do you need to stop doing? You know what those things are. So just write them down. You're going to have some time to come back and work on this. But write down what's on your heart right now. Just write it in the box. And then I want you to work on the other two when you've got some time. I'm going to cover them quickly, but I want you to work on these. So when I did this with Eric, I wrote down under energy, I wrote down a term called Fenergy. And it just came to my mind. Like, I'm hoping some things come to yours. And my brother-in-law gave me that nickname 26 years ago. And I said, I want to be an active and fit 100-year-old. You know, I want to take such good care of myself mentally, physically, and spiritually that when I'm 100 years old, I'm still engaged. My kids, my grandkids, and probably great-grandkids by then. I want to be able to impact them. I want to see my kids grow up and raise their kids. And I want to see their kids grow up. And I want to be there to participate in that. I wrote strong, flexible, pain-free, growing. And I set a one-year goal. I set a goal to get to 185 pounds. And guess what? At the end of last year, I was at 182. So I beat that goal by 3 pounds. I didn't set a body fat goal at the time, but I shared with you my numbers. I went from 19.2 down to 12.1. I did write the word transformational, and it was transformational health. And the number one thing that I started doing was being diligent with my exercise and being diligent with my diet. And the number one stop I put on my list was to stop eating sweets at night. I think taking the sugar out of my diet has undoubtedly been the secret. And then I did the same thing under love. And I said, you know, I want strong relationships. I want to live by love 2.0. I want to take it to the next level. I want love. I want gratitude. I want passion. I want growth. And the identity I came up with was being the ultimate family man. And I need to be intentional. I need to have intentional time, and I need to stop being passive aggressive. And I need to stop focusing on me, which was a big problem. Now, if my wife were on this call, and thank goodness she's not, she'd say, well, Mark still has a long way to go there. But you know what? I think she'd also tell you that I've made a lot of progress. And I believe it's, you know, having the intentionality behind this goal setting that's helped me make that progress. So let me tell you where I put that on our sheet. So right here, if you go back to the blue form, you know, this is where you can put the annual goal. And right here is where you can put your starts. And right here is where you can put your stops. Now, there's one other column in there for keeps. You can use that if you want. And I'm going to talk about quarterly goals here in a minute. But I was with a client, a brand new client this week. I did a 2-day strategic planning meeting with them. And the client gave me this quote. And I love this quote. And so I put it into the deck. And it's a Ralph Waldo Emerson quote. It says, the world makes a way for the man, I added, or woman who knows where they're going. So, you know, creating that clarity, you know, clarity is power. And it's amazing how the universe and the good Lord just opens stuff up for us when we're clear on what we really want and what are our priorities. Now let's talk about a goal to move the soul. And this could be your dream. In fact, on the worksheet, I put dream. Eric calls it a goal, a soul goal. And I love the idea of the soul goal. But walk through this with me for a minute. Now, you've got some work to do here. So take some notes as we go through and come back and do this. Don't come back and listen to this again and come back and redo it. But get this filled out. I mean, this was powerful for me. But here's the concept. So step number one, what are some really important goals for energy, work, and love? So I took energy as the first one there. So I thought mental, physical, spiritual health. If I maximize those and I commit to those, what great things can I accomplish? What great things could you accomplish if you maximize those? So think about your mental, physical, spiritual. If I'm healthy enough to be here when I'm 100, think of all the stuff I've got left that I can get done. I mean, this was a liberating breakthrough for me. Expert in helping organizations scale. If I really maximize this idea of being the world's greatest coach, if I really can make scaling up work for the masses, what all could I do? How big of an impact could I make? How big of an impact could you make? And then if I really live where I give and I contribute and I love and I diminish my need for selfishness and focus more on others, think of the lives that I could impact. And so that's what I did is I went through and I listed out the 2 or 3 things that I was really focused on becoming in those areas. And then I came down and I built a soul goal. And I took all that and I brought it together and I said, you know what, if I could do all that, then I could do something really, really, really significant. And I don't mind sharing with you, you know, my soul goal, and that's to be the preeminent scaling up coach, helping more than 100 companies scale over 100 million. And I've got a whole reason why that 100 million is important to me, and doing one of them myself with my son, Kyle. So I see us starting a company and scaling it. And that's my soul goal. That's what I want to get done. And it's because I took the time to think about these other areas of my life and thought, you know what, if I really got the power of those 3 areas behind me, you know, what I could accomplish is so much greater. And so the idea of the dream team is not about you going out and recruiting other people to help you, although that may be important, but it's really how do you tap into these 3 identities within yourself and use these 3 identities to really help you become that person that you were meant to be and really close that gap between where you are today and where you could be and start striving for that. And so once you go through this exercise, you'll see that from the worksheet there, number 3 would go in right there. That box would fill in there on the purple sheet. 4 would go there. Oh, I forgot to cover why do you want it. So let me back up for a minute. So once I had the soul goal, then I wrote, you know, why do I really want to achieve this? And this is really rooted in a fundamental principle of reasons first, answers second. And we have such a tendency, especially those of you that are on the phone that are more analytical, to say, yeah, but, or yeah, I've tried that, or yeah, but I don't think I could do that, and to look for the reasons why you can't do it. So the reason that the opportunity to focus on the why is to make those reasons big. And what I have found is when the reasons are big enough, if you want something bad enough, you'll go make it happen, right? You'll go over, under, or through a 2-foot thick concrete wall to get to something if it means enough to you. But if it's not that important, then, you know, you'll take a look at it and go, it's too hard, and you'll give up. And so the key to achieving the soul goal is to get clear on why that goal is a must and not just a should. And so the work I did in this area is I worked on it, is really thought about what great things could happen for my family, for the community, for those that mean the most to me, the lives that could be impacted if I could pull this off. And then I use a little bit of pain as well that said, and what if I don't pursue this? What kind of regret will I live with if I don't put my all behind this? You know, Jim Rohn said, you know, we all suffer one of 2 pains, either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And he said, the pain of discipline weighs ounces and the pain of regret weighs tons. And that's really always connected with me. So I use that as a lever to help create the reasons why I must grow, I must get better. And I'm not saying you need to go for something that big, something that challenges you that much the first time, but put something down. Start to strive towards some kind of better version of yourself. And then number 5 are the reasons to believe. And these need to be, you know, in society, we tend to focus on what's wrong instead of what's right. We focus on why we can't do something instead of why we can. And you know, both faith and fear are born solely in our imaginations. And fear is what keeps you from taking action. You may call it something else, but it's really fear. Fear of failure, fear of not being enough, fear of looking foolish. And both fear and faith are born in our imagination. We've heard fear is false evidence appearing real. Faith is certainty for no good reason, right? But here's the difference. Fear is imagination undirected. Faith is directed imagination. Faith takes nurturing. It takes development. So when you're looking for reasons to believe, has somebody else achieved what you want to achieve? And if so, write it down. Put it in your notes and focus on that. Have you accomplished things in the past that maybe at one time you thought were impossible? If so, write it down. Think about your reasons to believe, the level of confidence that you're building in yourself that you can accomplish things that seemed insurmountable. That's what you write in the reasons to believe. Now, some of you that lead people are thinking, Mark, this seems like I'm getting awful personal here. And some of you on the phone are saying, you know, I'm not sure I'd want to share this, you know, with my boss or be this transparent. And I want to encourage you to be open-minded about it. You know, I met a guy named Marcus. He works for a company here in Dallas called Improving Enterprises. And I went over to his office and he was telling me about the CEO. And he said, you know, our CEO is focused on helping all of us grow and develop. And he said, and this was really proven out to me a couple years ago at the Christmas party. And he goes, you know, I'd had maybe a glass or two of wine and I was talking to the CEO and he said, so Marcus, you know, what do you want to accomplish in your life? I mean, what's your dream? And he said, so I felt comfortable. So I told him, I said, you know what my wife and I really want to do is one day we want to own a bed and breakfast. And he goes, I no more than said that and thought, oh my God, why would I say that to the guy I work for? You know, I mean, am I going to be now on the short list? But he said, you know what, Mark, when I came in that Monday morning, Curtis came to my office and said he was so glad that I shared with him what my real dream was and that they were going to do everything in their power to help them learn the skills through my work that could someday allow me to go pursue that dream. And I love that philosophy. Both Chick-fil-A and Deloitte have figured this out. Chick-fil-A used to treat their high school students like hourly employees. And then they thought, you know what? Why don't we treat these young adults like they're going to be with us forever? Let's pour into them. Let's find their hopes, their dreams. Let's find out how they can take this experience working in our restaurant and serve them in a way that equips them. Deloitte did the same thing. They had all these business school kids come in. Most of them last 2 or 3 years and they go to work for one of their customers or somewhere else. And they said, why don't we take this time to really develop them? Let's assume they're going to leave and let's develop them and prepare them for what their dreams are. Well, what do you think happened to both Chick-fil-A and Deloitte? All of a sudden, turnover went way down. Employee engagement went way up. And now they've got a much better work environment and they're driving more productivity. Their people are better. It's a win-win. And so it may seem a little foreign. It may seem a little awkward. Work your way into it at a pace you're comfortable. But I'm telling you, as a leader, we have such an opportunity to impact others through our work. And it's not just about getting people to do good for us on the job, but it's making them better people at home and in their community. And this format is giving you a way to really be that kind of coach. So here's where you'd fill that in on the form. So, kind of the soul goal goes right there in the middle. Why do you want it? Goes in number 4. And then the reasons believe goes in number 5. And I'm going to tell you, if you're coaching people, this is an area that you've got to help them think bigger and bolder, and help them develop their why and help them develop their reasons to believe. And if you're working on this personally for yourself, this is where a coach can really help you. If you don't have a coach or a peer, somebody else that's going through this that's interested in growth like you are. I've got a mastermind buddy in Ohio that we're doing a ski trip in a couple weeks, and we'll be working through our forms and talking about pumping each other up with, helping us develop stronger whys, helping us develop stronger reasons to believe, and strengthening our soul goals. And so I encourage you to surround yourself with others. I share this with my coach so he can help me and challenge me to keep growing and developing. And then after you get your annual goals in these areas, then come back and say, what am I going to get done this quarter? And those of you that work with me in the scaling up methodology, it's about running the 90-day sprints. It's about, getting stuff in the next 90 days. What am I going to get done? And that creates the natural reflection cycle to look back and say, okay, what did I get done? What am I doing good? Where do I need to persevere? Where do I need to pivot? Now, I also use the Full Focus Planner personally to help me with that. I'm a huge fan of that planning method. But this is a place for you to put that on this growth plan. What are the things that you're going to get done this quarter? And a lot of the goals that I encourage you to put on here should be they should be virtues, or they should be habits that you're looking to create that are going to help develop you into that kind of person that can achieve great results. So I'll just share with you, what I'm working on right now. So, for work, I've got some goals that I can measure, but I'm also launching a new brand. I told you about scaling up DFW. I'm working really hard on helping my clients better understand strategy and the strategic planning process. So I've got a goal to have that much stronger in my arsenal. And then I want to be viewed as the preeminent coach to my clients. In my love category, it's daily one-on-one time. It's church every Sunday. It's quiet time with my leadership Bible. And then in energy and fitness, I do a range of motion workout. So I've got it in here for 4 times a week. And it's my CrossFit 4 times a week. I feel like, and then I need to maintain, my keep is maintaining my new diet that I think is really, really working well, and continuing to keep sugar out of my diet. I think that's really been the thing that's really worked there. But what are your goals? What is it that you want to do this year, and what can you focus on this quarter? And this is where you would put it. So success is in our daily routine. I love this quote by Aristotle. This quote came up 2,000 years ago. I think it's as relevant today as it was back then. And the quote says this. It says, "We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence. We rather have those because we have acted rightly." So these virtues that we're talking about, that I gave you when I flashed you to that website, some of you maybe have cultivated those, and maybe you've nurtured them, and they're alive and well in you, and probably many of you on this call are like me, and you haven't really nurtured those and haven't really developed them. And so I would really encourage you to think about, on a daily basis, how can I make those virtues real to me? And so this last slide, this last worksheet that I have here is building your dream team, is taking energy, work, and love and building a consistent habit around that on a daily basis. And what this means is that every day you sit down and you write, what is that identity What are the virtues that I'm committed to living today? And the way I do it is I do what's one thing I'm either going to start or stop doing. And when I went through the program with Eric, I did this using the worksheets, and then we'd post them up to a Facebook group, and we learned from each other. What I do today is I take my planner, and it takes me about 3 to 4 minutes to go through this exercise. And I'd be kidding you if I said it was anything less than life-changing. I mean, that's the reason I've gotten the results, is because every day I'm focused on it. And so you can see up here, I did World's Greatest Change Agent, WGCA. And then for my virtues, I wrote wisdom, self-mastery, and courage. And I would tell you that I'm working on all of them, but right now, courage is the one that's probably showing up the most. You know, the difference so often between the kind of results we want and the kind of results we're getting is the courage to communicate and to step into that communication. And sometimes it feels awkward and we're not sure and we don't trust. And so I'm really working hard on myself to have those courageous conversations. And then I wrote, you know, what am I going to start doing? I'm going to use more questions, and I'm going to focus on connection. So I'm working hard to connect with you through the webinar. And I've got some meetings this afternoon that I really want to use questions. Less speak, you know, less being the expert, and more great questions. And so that's something that I'm working hard on right now. And I write that every day. And this may change depending on the meetings that I have coming up that day or the activities that I have this day. For Ultimate Family Man, I put love, empathy, patience, support. I just love this word empathy. I'm working really hard on it. And I wrote quality and uninterrupted time. My daughter is coming over for dinner. You know, I home office, which puts challenges with my work being close. But I'll leave everything in here and I'll go out there with just myself and be present. And then on Fenergy, it was strong, flexible, pain-free. I want to work out hard, but I want to be limber and no pain. And so, you know, I set a goal to make sure that I do my range of motion workout before I go to bed. I did CrossFit this morning, but I knew I was doing that. I did this right as I was walking out the door to that, but I want the range of motion to be in there. So this is an exercise that probably takes me, you know, 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm working on getting to 100% compliance to it. I struggle. There's times, you know, like when I was in San Antonio with the new client, it was hard to stay committed. It was stressful. I had a lot going on down there, and I missed one of those mornings, and I regretted it. But I'm back on it, right? So again, this process isn't about perfection. It's about progress. And again, it's about identifying what is that best version of me and what are things I can do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a quarterly basis to make that progress. And a final pitch for the Full Focus Planner. I love that, number one, I've got all my stuff written in here, but then every week I put my top 3 activities for the week. And then at the end of the week, I reflect. How did I do on them? And I'm working a lot on these virtues and these building blocks of making me a better person around these 3 identities, where I used to focus a lot on outcomes. And I've really learned that it's really about how I show up every day that really makes the difference. And if I can make that automatically, then it's going to make a bigger impact. And so my hope for you is you catch a little bit of that enthusiasm, a little bit of that passion, a little bit of that conviction, and you make a decision that, you know what, I'm going to do things differently. And I'm going to take some piece of what Mark talked about today, and I'm going to start taking action on it. And maybe it's getting the goal sheet figured out. Maybe it's getting the personal development plan figured out. Maybe it's starting with the dream team exercises every morning. I don't really care what it is. What I do care is that you do something. If you leave this call and you don't make a commitment to take some action towards getting better, then this call was a non-productive use of your time. So I encourage you to do something towards taking action towards something that you learned today. Here's some additional reading that I want to leave with you. By far, my favorite on here is this John Maxwell, Intentional Living. I think it's a phenomenal book, and it's just a phenomenal thought process for you to start thinking about, you know, what is the kind of person that I really want to be? And I think Simon Sinek's Start With Why is a great way to go back and revisit, you know, what is my purpose? John's book will help you with that. So will Simon's. The two are great complements. So if you've read one, then read the other one. If you haven't read either one, I recommend you start with John's book. So I'm going to open it up for some questions. You know, next steps, I would encourage you to download the worksheets. There's a bit.ly for the worksheets. Go back and I didn't put that on my list here, but don't forget about the 2 previous webinars. Go back and watch or listen to those. Watch for the emailed evaluation. That's our thanks, and you'll get a recording, a copy of the webinar recording and the deck. The webinar recording is going to be up on YouTube eventually. Probably, it usually takes us a day or 2 to get it up. But if you give us feedback on the workshop through our evaluation, then I send you a copy of the deck, and you can do with the deck what you want. And then schedule a follow-up discussion. I'd love to learn about you and your goals, your hopes, your dreams, your fears, what you're trying to accomplish, how you could apply this in your life, how you could teach it to help become a developer of people. And always, you know, contact me directly. I mean, there's my cell phone, there's my email address. So give me a call when you want. Okay, question. Kevin, thank you for the question. And it's a good one. Kevin always challenges me with the question. So how do you balance the full focus goals in your everyday requirements with work? So that's a great question, Kevin. You know, this is, I remember when I went through this with Eric, he used for energy, he used world-class athlete, world's greatest CEO, world's greatest coach, world's greatest, you know, husband and family man. And so we got similar questions as we went through. You'll notice on mine, you know, I've got, and I'm a little bit older than Eric, so I've got, you know, different goals, but, you know, I want to be pain-free, flexible. I want to be the best I can be in my work, and I want to be great for my family. So how I use it is it's got to flex with life. You know, there's times that I've got to prioritize more as a family man, and there's got to be times that I'm in a rhythm like I was earlier this week where, you know, I needed to focus for 2 days on my client. And so I ebb and flow with that a little bit. But the way that I use it is that when I show up in that moment, I'm committed to being the best version of me. I didn't get to CrossFit, you know, when I was in San Antonio. I missed CrossFit those 2 days. I got a little bit of work done in my hotel room, just some squats, air squats, and some push-ups. But I didn't do anything like a regular workout. But, you know, I did the best I could with the time I had available. We went to dinner when I was in San Antonio. And we went to Papado's, one of my favorite restaurants, and I knew the bread would be a challenge. So I challenged myself to 1 piece of bread. I challenged myself to just half the dessert. It was key lime pie. It was amazing. Dessert is it's my kryptonite. So I try to be careful around desserts. But so that's what I do. So it's not about perfection. It's about progress. And it's about just committing. You know, Eric, I'll tell you one thing Eric does that I think is unique. When his alarm goes off in the morning, he puts his identity in it. So it'll come, he uses his phone, it comes off and it says world's greatest athlete is what he wakes up to. And so he comes out of bed and says, okay, in the next hour and a half, I want to perform as this world's greatest athlete. I want an intentional workout. And he said, I do that whether it's an hour and a half or whether it's 10 minutes. I want to just bring my best to that time I have. When around 8:30 or 9, his alarm goes off and he becomes world's greatest CEO, world's greatest coach, depending on what he's focused on that day. And then he said at 6:30, my alarm goes off and it says world's greatest dad. And I put those other identities behind me and I go full focus into being as present and as intentional as I can with my wife and with my kids. And so I don't use the alarms, but I think of that intentional time and just how do I want to show up in that moment. And I don't want to straddle the fence and be half in my business, half with my family. Eric, through this work, I've gotten really good at putting the cell phone away. I think that's been a huge move forward for me. If somebody needs to get a hold of me, I'll see it in the morning. I don't worry about it now. I used to feel like I had to have it with me all the time. And if somebody emailed me at 8:30, I needed to be on that email. I'm getting away from that. Not that I'm perfect, and not that there's not times when things are going on that I need to be there, but I'm really working hard in that effort, in that area. So I hope that answered your question. Great one. If not, follow up with me. Trey, do you recommend any other tools for personal goal setting and maintaining focus? That's a great question, Trey. I've read a lot of goal setting over the years. I've always set goals. I think what I'm doing a much better job of with this process is focusing on it every day. And those virtues and the goals I want to focus on for the quarter are really helping me. So I don't really have another book that I might recommend. I will on goal setting per se, other than, if you go to Michael's Hyatt's website on the Full Focus Planner, there's a lot of tools around how to plan. And this planner is for a quarter. It's for a 90-day period. But how to use the planner, how to use the weekly, the weekly preview and the weekly reflection, the daily preview, the daily reflection. So that's probably another tool that I would recommend. And I really love the concept of anti-fragile. And that's a recent book that I've read. And, anti-fragile means if you're robust, then nothing hurts you. If you're fragile, if there's a force, you crumble. If you're anti-fragile, forces make you stronger. And I love the concept of that, because I think so many times in my life and people I've coached, they expect everything to go smoothly, but the obstacle is really the way. It's the challenges that make us stronger. When I go to CrossFit, we put weight on the bar. I don't just sit there and pretend I'm lifting weight, because that resistance makes me stronger. When I go into difficult client situations or difficult planning situations or difficult challenges with my family, I learn from those and they make me stronger. So I might recommend Anti-Fragile as a great book to work on, to work on your mindset a little bit. I love that concept. I'm going to be teaching on that more. So my thoughts are kind of free flowing right now, but another great question. And if I can help you anymore, Trey, give me a holler. Any other questions? Hey, listen, great call. I appreciate all of you being here. Again, my hope is that you commit. In fact, I'd ask you, take your planner out, whatever you're using, and write down what are one or two things you're committed to doing as a result of what you learned on this call. And I hope you can use this to raise your level of effectiveness. And most importantly, I hope you use this to make a bigger impact on those that are around you. There is a dearth of leadership. People are crying out for great leadership, and we have a platform to truly make a difference in the lives of others. So I hope you'll seize on it, take advantage of it, and enjoy the ride. So thanks so much, and I look forward to talking to you all again here real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.